Clean Water. Captain Dan, how are you, man? How are you? Thanks for coming on.
Good. How are you?
So nice of you.
Nice to have you back.
To come down to Gateway and what's the event about here today? Tell us all about it.
So it's just kind of an awareness event, a little bit of a fundraiser, but mostly just to get a bunch of people out. It's been obviously with COVID, the events have kind of thinned out. But we're trying to get back in the groove with things, and this was actually where our very first fundraiser was for the organization.
Oh, so is that right?
Yeah, we figured it's a good place to get a bunch of people.
And when was that?
That would have either been 2016 or 2017.
Wow.
I can't remember. It's been so long ago.
Yeah.
And so much has happened. I mean, you guys, started this, and then it just seemed to explode. It really resonated with folks.
Yeah, it's an issue that we're just one small piece of the overall effort trying to fix it, but it's an issue that it's caused so much economic, so many quality of life problems, as you all know, being out on the beach. People want answers. They want to see the needle moved on these things. As I've heard in your last couple of shows, you've really become the Losam expert yourself right here. And that's what it takes to fix these problems. It takes a bunch of people like yourself that really understand it and that can communicate on it.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
it's not easy. It's a lot of layers and a lot of
moving pieces,
digging.
For
sure. Now, before we get into the meat of what's coming up with Losam, for the people in Gateway that might not know, Dan, how did the captains get started? I mean, what was the whole basis for getting the organization rolling?
Sure. So captains started in 2016. I was born and raised here in Southwest Florida, and I'd seen the discharges a lot, but it was the first time they were happening right in the middle of our tourist season. And we saw a lot of people were angry. They wanted to do something about it. And we just kind of felt the same. And there was a lot of uncertainty. People didn't understand why the problem was happening. So we founded the organization just to give people the educational information they need to make better decisions and to be more involved in the process. Obviously, lots happened since then. And we've begun to tackle more kind of aspects of the issue. But yeah, it was.
Now, when you say discharges, you mean from Lake Okeechobee. So people that are really on the peripheral and not following it, the discharges from Lake Okeechobee that wind their way down here and cause some issues.
I think what really got people's attention here and even farther out from the beach was 2018 when it crushed this area.
Yeah, what we saw in 2018 was unlike anything I've ever seen in my life here. And I mean, even this brewery here, I mean, look at all the beer they sell down on the barrier islands. Nobody was buying it. I mean, it impacted literally everybody in Southwest Florida.
Now, I think it's hard. It's not hard, but for me, it's been eye-opening to just realize that the economy of here, it's not a green economy. It is a blue economy. It is the water. And without that water, everything else is really going to suffer.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I saw it as a fishing guide. Everybody that came onto my boat, they would then go eat at a restaurant that night. A lot of them were staying in hotels here. A lot of them were looking to buy property. They'd come to places like the brewery or a lot of different just entertainment venues in town. And, the water is what drew them in here, but everything else is kind of living off that as well. So it's even everything that's one step removed from it still depends on that clean water. Now,
you and Chris are fishing guides, or tell us what you do. I mean, this isn't a day job. This is your
so now this is full time.
Oh, gotcha.
For a bunch of people. I was a fishing guide. I was a fishing guide here from about 2011, and then by about 2017, 2018, captains was taking up more and more of my time. And being a fishing guide is kind of like being a surgeon. If you're not doing it every day, you're not going to be real good at it. And, for me now that I've got, really hardly any free time at all, as some of my friends that can attest, I've taken out fishing recently and not quite as on it as I used to be. But when I was guiding, I was out there 300 plus days a year.
Sweet.
And when you're out there all the time, you notice little changes, and it's much easier to see that when you have the discharges, here's the impacts that they're having.
Now, did you ever expect that when you started Captains for Clean Water that you'd be one of 8-10 people that stand behind Governor DeSantis at almost every press conference that has to do with water? it seems like you're either this may be wrong if I'm saying it, but you're clearly an ally of his. He wouldn't have you behind you if that wasn't the way the relationship was. So you meet privately with him? Do you guys have chats all the time about the water issues?
It just seems like it just
seems like you're always there.
Sorry.
And I just want to push Adam Botana out of the picture because the guy doesn't do anything compared to what you guys do, but that's a different story. But did you ever expect that would happen with you?
So no, I didn't. I really had no idea what was involved with all this when we first started the organization. We actually met DeSantis when he was in Congress. Chauncey Goss, who's one of our board members, and he now put as the head of the water management district. We were up in Washington. Chauncey texted him like, "Hey, I want you to meet these guys and talk." And we talked to him for like 2 minutes about it, and he's like, "Got it. What can I do to help?" And he very quickly understood the issue. He came down here in 2018. He heard from us. We told him what we wanted, and his second day in office, he started to make these sweeping changes. Right. Got rid of the old governing board at the water management district. Really laid out his 4-year plan on what he was going to do. And we're between me and our team. We're in regular conversation with his office, and he's definitely had a level of leadership that we hadn't seen at the gubernatorial level, at least in my lifetime since I've been paying attention to this. And that's the reason why there's projects happening right now. He kind of took a no BS approach to this and wanted to start moving the needle on it.
Now, we're talking about it. We're alluding to it. LOSUM's coming out. So before we get into that, what is your relationship with the Army Corps of Engineers? Have you been able to meet with them on and off? Do you have, the same input there as you did with DeSantis?
Yeah. So great question. First of all,
we have a bell that we ring when someone says great question. That's why, but he didn't bring it.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen a lot when she asks questions.
Yeah, no. So it's first of all, DeSantis obviously being a politician is a little bit more, pays more attention to public perception. You have a bureaucracy like the Corps. It's a little bit more challenging. I will say the Corps has shifted in the last 5 years. They care a lot more about public perception and want a better image, and that's kind of helped steer them to be more open-minded. They're still the Corps. They're still very by the book. I would say our relationship with them now is better than it has been in the past. They are more open. They do communicate with our staff regularly. We don't always get the answers that we want from them, but I think Colonel Kelly did a good job kind of shifting what the Corps was doing. It's definitely different than dealing with an elected official for sure. They don't answer to anybody, they don't answer to the president of the United States in their mind. So it's definitely a challenge.
They have seemed to, it seemed like they were really out there getting public input on this new plan that's coming out, this new book, as you were talking about. Now we'll see coming up on Tuesday.
Hold on a second, dear. Now, do you feel like?
See, you messed up my segue.
Do you feel like Colonel Booth, the new colonel, is as open to conversations about making sure we don't get screwed on this side as seemed like Colonel Kelly was?
Yeah, so Colonel Kelly definitely was. I met with Colonel Booth a few times. He definitely seems to understand it. I think a lot of us are sitting back kind of cautiously optimistic right now. We're continuing to put pressure there. Colonel Kelly definitely had it right. I think, like I said, we're cautiously optimistic. It's such a big portfolio to grasp, just inside Everglades restoration and LOSUM. Then you've got all these other different issues that are obviously in the Corps portfolio. But I think he understands it. We'll see. Time will tell. But I think the best thing people can do right now is just keep the pressure on him. He needs to see that.
Before we get into the specifics of LOSUM, which we probably should explain what that word means, dear. Some people like to criticize Captains for Clean Water in this community and maybe even try and step on your back to make a bigger name for themselves. How can you make people feel at ease that you're trying to do what's best for the water and it's just not water in a specific area, or am I getting it wrong?
No, I think, there's two to go back to what you said there, as far as some people that aren't really on the same page. I think they fit into kind of two categories. there is a clear opposition that we have in this fight. The sugar industry is what's good for them is bad for us and vice versa. So we're trying to fix that balance. So there's some people that are great advocates on behalf of the sugar industry, and they're opposed to what we're doing. There's also political figures, I'm going to leave names out of this, but that you know, are trying to be front and center on anything and everything. And we ignore that stuff. We stay out of it. It's not helpful to the cause overall. You know, it's like I said in the beginning, you know, Captains is one small piece in a bigger overall effort, and we all have to see that this is a team effort. There is no I in this. There is no, you know, single organization. It's about everybody working together to put the pressure on.
When you started Captains for Clean Water, did you ever think it would get to the political point where people would actually criticize what you were thinking about doing?
So ironically, I probably wouldn't be here if that didn't happen. Within about 3 weeks of starting Captains for Clean Water, we got some like fake news hit piece on us that was about how we formed this organization to slow down Everglades restoration. I'm like,
which is the exact opposite.
And I'd never seen anything like that before. And that's what really, to me, made it intriguing. And the more you start to dig into it, the more it happened. It's kind of like, well, that's the exact reason why we need to exist. Is because in the past, anytime any individual stood up on this, opposition comes at them from, you know, 20 different angles and just attacks them until they, you know, shrivel up and wither away or tuck their tail and run. So, yeah, no, I didn't expect it on day one, but as it started coming, it just reinforced the need for why we need to be here. So
for anyone that's watching or listening that heard us say LOSOM very 5 or 6 times, it stands for the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual.
Nice job.
And that will dictate how the lake is managed for the next decade.
Yeah.
I guess you're allowed to tweak it a little bit along the way, or it seemed like the last plan was. And the goal is that that we don't get screwed on this side of the state.
Well, the goal is to achieve balance throughout the entire system.
Right. And so there seems to be a bit of a battle between this coast and the other coast and also sugar. So what is your goal here with LOSOM? When the Corps meets on the 26th and there's supposed to be some kind of modification to the plan as it was put out previously, what are you looking for?
So I think what we're going to see on October 26th is still just going to be another chapter. I don't think it's going to be the final thing. Okay. We were hoping it was, and talked to the Corps last week, and they're like, well, we're gonna still show you several different options on the 26th. And so I don't think it's going to be their final tentatively selected plan. I think we're going to see that in November. But yeah, you know, I think every stakeholder group, West Coast, East Coast, Everglades, Sugar, Lake Okeechobee, I think everybody has expectations of what they want for their area that none of them are really realistic. You know, we've seen that a lot with the East Coast, and you've seen it with the sugar industry and with the lake. And I think the reality here is there's only so much you can squeeze out of this, that everybody wants this to be a perfect solution, and it's not going to be.
Well, I think that, and you know, as I've been talking to people and Eve Samples and a bunch of different people, is that
name dropper.
You know, I know, right? So one of the challenges is that this isn't just going to, that operating manual can't solve all these problems.
Yeah.
One of the things is they need more stormwater treatment areas.
Yeah.
And they need more land for that. And so what's the problem with getting more land is there's nothing to buy, there's nothing available, you know.
Yeah, so the land, if you want to build those stormwater treatment areas, which we absolutely do need to build more, that'll be an ongoing thing for a while. The best place to put them is in the Everglades agricultural area, which is where U.S. Sugar and Florida Crystals are currently operating. And right now they don't want to sell. They made that clear. There's been times in the past that they did, but you know, they've even filed lawsuits recently on the reservoir project, just because when you build those stormwater treatment areas, they have a water demand. So they're using water even in the dry season, and that's their issue with them. So that I think that's kind of the challenge politically is, you know, they don't want to sell it because that as soon as they sell it, then that land is a competing water user for them.
So the question, thank you. I mean, we can't have, you got to have a beer here. So The question I have for you is, Kevin Ruane, the county chairman, has kind of laid out there that he's going to be willing to file lawsuits if things don't go the way he wants them to go.
Yeah.
Are you on the same page as the county board here in Lee County?
I would like to see what's the criteria for that lawsuit. I think just kind of vaguely saying, we're going to sue if I don't like it. I think it's better to define, at this point, when we cross this threshold, if it's worse for us than Lore's, yes, for sure. Okay. But
Lore's being the current.
We have to have something that's better than what we have right now. But I think as long as we do have something that's better, I don't see how
But do you want the same thing he wants, or do you feel like you're more broad? You got to deal with a bigger area than just our side of it, because he wants what's best for Southwest Florida and Lee County specifically. But do you feel like that your organization needs to be more broad and help people in more communities?
Yeah, I mean, we're focused on all of South Florida. We want to see a benefit for the West Coast, the Everglades and the Keys, and the East Coast entirely. But there has to be an improvement in this LOSOM for all three of those estuaries.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at this.
Oh,
nice.
boy, thank you.
The owners of the Fort Myers Brewery are coming up next. They're going to tell us about their expansion.
Yeah.
But the two more questions for me, dear, before we let Dan go to his event here, is that let me make sure I can remember. Sometimes I forget questions you may recall from your appearance on the beach. So Brian Mast has been wicked good at protecting his side of the state. Is Byron Donalds doing a strong job on the water issue here on this side?
Yeah, he is. For Brian, this is his number one issue, and it has been for a long time. So he's been up in Congress. He understands politics within the core, and he's been very effective there. Byron's new up there, but they've been listening to us. We've been working with them. I think that, I know Jesse Perdone here, district director, is very engaged on this. It's definitely, for Brian, it's easier because he's on Transportation Infrastructure Committee. So he's got a little bit more pull there with the core. But yeah, I mean, Byron has been attentive to what we need. And we were just up in Washington, met with the staff up there. They get it. They're paying attention, and they've come forward wanting to listen. So I think that's definitely important.
Well, I think too, it's a little, I don't want to say easier, but it's a little on the East Coast. They just don't want any water.
Yeah.
We need some water in the dry season, but we don't want too much in the wet season because we have such a big watershed. And part of the issue is that watershed isn't accounted for when they're doing releases. Is that correct?
Currently, that is correct. Yeah, they don't account for that. We think that at least most of the LOSOM schedule, until they hit those, that very upper band or maybe the top two upper bands, until that's hit, it's looking like they're going to account for watershed.
So they'll measure not at 77, but at 79, which is in Alva.
Yeah.
And you guys are really getting in the weeds here.
But it only makes sense.
No, it's important stuff.
It only makes sense because it sounds not so bad at 77, but then all this water comes in, and it's water that's being affected by seepage from some sewage. It's also all the glyphosate and all of that, and so
you're getting too deep in the weeds here. We need to do a Captains for Clean Water podcast every single week because that's how important it is. But I agree. So before we let you go, how do you what's your funding from? I mean, you're doing a fundraiser today. You're doing fundraisers all the time. Where do you get your funding from so people can get out there and help you out?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great opportunity here today at Fort Myers Brewing Company. Well over half of our donations are small donations, whether it's a membership, a hat, or $500 or less donation. That's where we get most of it from. We have a handful of events. It kind of got slowed down in COVID, but I mean, the easiest thing you can do is either become a member or buy a hat on the site.
Awesome.
So now give out the website and talk about, you can be a member, you can do a donation. You guys have a newsletter, and you also help, not help, but you have a template for people to get a hold of their congressperson and make their voices heard.
Yeah. So if you go to captainsforcleanwater.org, right on the homepage, you'll see something you can do to take action on LOSOM right now. We've had over 25,000 people that have filled that out. That's far more than any organization that I'm aware of. And the primary thing right now that we're pushing for there is reduced discharges to the Caloosahatchee. So we've had 25,000 of those messages go out. Another one is only going to help. Like I said, we have this new colonel in here now, Colonel Booth. I think the more pressure he sees right now on how important this is, especially for the West Coast, to reduce discharges, I think that's going to ultimately end up being a better outcome for us.
Right.
Well, Dan, thanks so much for coming on. Anything we can do to help, we always appreciate seeing you here on the beach or on your Facebook page. You guys, sometimes we see you out at the at Lake Okeechobee or one of the locks or something, just doing a live cut in there, and people should get on the website and donate if they can buy a hat. We're going to buy a couple of hats before we leave today. Come on down to the Fort Myers Brewery and support Captains for Clean Water. They're doing the right thing for the water, and we really need to support them as much as we can with coming down here and financially maybe get a membership. How much of the memberships are at different
30?
levels?
So membership's $30.
Cool.
And hats, I believe, start around $25.
Nice.
So.
Well, thanks so much.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming all the way out here today.
Yeah.
For us.
We live right here.
We live right here.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this was great.
We
this
go all
was
the way
perfect.
to the beach.
Yeah.
There you
That's
go.
a hike.
Dan Andrews, everybody,
Thank you
from
so
Captains
much. Thanks a
for
lot.
Clean Water. Come on down and support Captains for Clean Water. The event's going on from it just started at 4:00, and I believe they're going until 7:00 tonight. There's live music, there's food trucks, and the crowd is going to get larger. And there's nothing better than doing a show with beer. And they have hats, and they have their own tent set up. So we invite